Hello, Laverne here, and thank you for joining me. May this video be a blessing to you, and may it honor and glorify God and His kingdom. This video is in response to one made by the atheist ProfMTH. Now in his video, he asked 4 questions of Christians. He would like our take on what 4 passages found in the New Testament mean. Now according to him, these passages are telling us that God hardens the heart of non-believers. And he asks us what we think of these 4 passages. So rather than me simply explain the questions and so on, because his video only lasted approximately, just short of 3 minutes, I'm going to play his video in its entirety and then I'll answer the questions that he poses. So that's what I'm going to do now. We'll just watch the video and then I'll respond.
Hey, as some of you already know, I recently put out a video called Failure by Divine Design, a Christian Construction of Unbelief. And it's led to a number of interesting discussions in the comments section. Among the things I've noticed is Christians disagreeing about and even seeming uncomfortable with some of the New Testament passages I quoted in the video. The particular passages at issue are, number 1, Romans 11:25, in which Paul claims that the Christian God has, at least temporarily, hardened Jews against believing in Jesus. Number 2, 2 Corinthians 3:14-15, in which the writer claims that the Christian God hardened Jewish minds and veiled Jewish hearts against believing in Jesus. Number 3, John 12:39-40, in which the writer claims that some Jews could not believe in Jesus because God had hardened their hearts and blinded their eyes. And number 4, 2 Corinthians 4:3-4, in which some Christians contend the Christian God is depicted blinding the minds of non-believers generally so that they will not accept the gospel. I'd like to get a sort of sense of the room with respect to these passages, so I'm going to conduct a thoroughly unscientific poll of the Christians who watch this. If you're Christian, please answer the following questions. Number 1, do you believe Romans 11:25 is correct in its claim that the Christian God had, at least temporarily, hardened Jews against believing in Jesus? Number 2, do you believe 2 Corinthians 3:14-15 is correct that the Christian God hardened Jewish minds and veiled Jewish hearts against believing in Jesus? Number 3, do you believe that John 12:39-40 is correct that God had hardened the hearts and blinded the eyes of some Jews so that they could not believe in Jesus? And number 4, do you believe that 2 Corinthians 4:3-4 says that the Christian God blinds the minds of non-believers generally so that they will not accept the gospel? Video and text responses answering these 4 questions would be most appreciated.
Alright, I'll stop this video there and I'll answer his 4 questions, beginning with question 1. First off, this is an easy one, for it does not tell us that it is God who hardened the hearts. God's name does not appear in the passage whatsoever. So even though the hearts are hardened, even though they may be blind, the passage does not tell us God is the one who done it. So when he asks the question, is this passage correct in saying that God is the one who hardened their hearts? No, that's not what the passage is saying. He has added to it in suggesting and saying that God is the one who hardened their hearts. Now going on to question 2, I'm actually going to begin looking at a passage found in chapter 2. 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 10 reads, "When you forgive this man, I forgive him too. And when I forgive whatever needs to be forgiven, I do so with Christ's authority for your benefit, so that Satan will not outsmart us, for we are familiar with his evil schemes." So here we see in chapter 2, he's talking about the evil schemes of Satan. He mentions this. Now, going on to the passage of question 2. I'm going to actually read, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation. I'm going to begin with verse 12 rather than just verse 14, so we can get it in proper context. Since this new way gives us such confidence, we can be very bold. We are not like Moses, who put a veil over his face so that the people of Israel would not see the glory, even though it was destined to fade away. But the people's minds were hardened, and to this day, whenever the Old Covenant is being read, the same veil covers their minds, so they cannot understand the truth, and this veil can be removed only by believing in Christ. Now, the veil that he is talking about here has to do with the Old Covenant, reading the writings of Moses. This is what he's talking about, is being kept from people, that there's a veil over their eyes. But he does not say, just as in the case of the Romans passage, he does not say that this is God who has put the veil over their eyes. So again, ProfMTH is adding to the passage when he's saying that it is God who has hardened the hearts. It simply is not in this passage. Now, going on, actually skipping question 3 and going on to question 4, because this is still in 2 Corinthians. I'm going to read from verse 3. It reads, and I'm again reading from the New Living Translation, if the good news we preach is hidden behind a veil, it is hidden only from people who are perishing. Satan, who is the god of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. Here, it very clearly says it is Satan who is the god of this world, who is blinding people. It is not God, the Christian God of the Bible. Now, I'm again reading from the New Living Translation. The King James Version does not say Satan. Rather, it uses God with the small casing G. God is spelled with the small g rather than the capital G. This is not then referring to the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Jehovah. This word is used to describe Satan. And not just Satan, it's used throughout the Bible to describe other beings as well. Now, the same word, the same Greek word is used in each case, whether it's talking about the Jehovah, the biblical God of the Bible, or whether it's talking about God with a small g. But when it's normally talking about the God of the Bible, usually there's words for Jehovah, and then translators today, modern translators, rather than saying Jehovah, often simply translate it into God. So if they meant God, there are many other words, like the God of the Bible, our Father. There are other words that would have been used. The fact that they used this word that is also used for God with a small g, and then when we take it in context of the other things I just read, such as from chapter 2, and we see that it's talking about the God of this world, there is no question that this is referring to Satan. Satan is referred to the prince of this world in other passages. He is referred to the prince of air. We also know that Satan tempted Jesus, and he offered him all the kingdoms of this world if he would bow down to him. So we know that Satan is the one who is in control of this world. Jesus tells us that the time was coming when the ruler of this world is going to be kicked out. And he is referring to Satan. So there are all kinds of other passages that refer to Satan as being the ruler of this world. That's what this passage is talking about. And you can check every other translation. I read 23 different English translations for this passage. 3 of them use the words either Satan or the devil to describe the one ruling this world. The other 20 simply use the small casing G for God. Not one used God as with a capital G, meaning the God of the Bible. So these 3 passages are not, without question, are not telling us that God is the one who has hardened the hearts of non-believers. This only leaves one passage, that of John. And in that passage it does tell us that God is the one who hardened the hearts. And he is referring to a prophecy found in Isaiah chapter 6 verse 10. Now, I mentioned in the previous video of Prof's that from Isaiah 6 verse 10, there is a footnote at the bottom of the New Living Translation Bible, and it refers us to 4 other passages that are also copying, or rather referencing, this passage of Isaiah. John is the only one who refers to it as being God hardening the hearts. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and in the book of Acts, the same passage is referenced, but it does not tell us God is the one who hardened the hearts. Now, if we look at Isaiah, and we accept that he is telling us that God is the one who hardened the hearts, we have to ask why God did it, and exactly whose hearts he was hardening. Now, reading from the King James Version, since this is where it really does tell us that God is the one. I'm going to read verse 39, but going on past verse 40. Therefore they could not believe, because that Isaiah said again, He hath blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, that they should not see with their eyes, nor understand with their heart, and be converted, and I should heal them. These things said Isaiah, when he saw his glory, and spake of him. Nevertheless, among the chief rulers also many believed on him, but because of the Pharisees they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the synagogue. For they loved the praise of men more than the praise of God. Taking this in context is very important. We can't just read these 2 verses and say, okay, God hardened the hearts of all non-believers. That's not the case. We also have to look at the fact that God uses Satan to his benefit. So if Satan is allowed to do these things, it can also be said that God is the one ultimately responsible, even though Satan is the one directly doing it. We have to consider that. We have to consider the verses that followed, where it explains that there were those who believed, but they refused to confess. And the reason is because they loved the praise of men more, and they feared the Pharisees. So by preventing some from converting, it prevented other false conversions. And that could very well be the reason for this, to prevent false conversions. By taking people who would never truly convert and hardening their hearts, it prevented other false conversions from happening. So we have to consider why God has done these things. It's not simply, we can't simply read 2 verses and say, okay, God has hardened the hearts of all non-believers. That simply is not the case. There are other reasons as well, which I don't have time to get into. My time is short. But there are other reasons why God would harden the hearts of a few. But he does not harden the hearts of all non-believers. All right, as always, I look forward to comments and messages. Till next time, peace and blessings.